The twin suns of Velthara painted the sky in shades of purple and gold as evening approached. On the highest cliff overlooking the capital city, a young dragon sat alone. Her name was Hana, and her silver-blue scales caught the dying light like precious metal. She watched the sky with eyes full of longing. Above her, dozens of Velkhari soared through the air. The Velkhari were the masters of this world, massive dragon-like beings who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They twisted and turned through the clouds, their wings catching the wind with perfect grace. Some practiced combat moves. Others simply enjoyed the freedom of flight. To the Velkhari, flying was not just movement. It was life itself. Hana's right wing stretched out beside her, whole and strong, but her left wing told a different story. The membrane was torn and scarred. The bones had healed crooked. 6 months ago, she had been attacked by raiders while on patrol. Her ship exploded. She survived, but her wing did not. The best doctors on Velthara examined her. They all said the same thing. The damage was too deep. The nerves were destroyed. She would never fly again. In Velkhari culture, a dragon who could not fly was nothing. Hana had been a rising star in the Sky Guard. Everyone said she would become great. Now nobody looked at her. When they did, she saw only pity in their eyes. It hurt more than the injury itself. She pulled her damaged wing close to her body and turned away from the sky. That was when she noticed the human. He was small compared to her, barely reaching her shoulder if she stood on all 4 legs. He wore dirty work clothes covered in grease stains. His black hair stuck up in several directions. He carried a toolbox in one hand and what looked like half a sandwich in the other. He walked with the casual confidence of someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere at once. "Beautiful evening," the human said in passable Velkhari language. He sat down on a rock near her, uninvited. "Mind if I eat dinner here?" "The view is amazing." Hana stared at him. Humans were still new to this part of the galaxy. They had only made contact with other species 200 years ago. Most Velkhari considered them interesting but unimportant, clever with machines but lacking in culture and refinement. This one seemed completely unaware that he was interrupting her private suffering. "Do what you want," Hana said, turning back to watch the sky. The human unwrapped his sandwich and ate in silence for a while. Hana hoped he would finish and leave. Instead, he spoke again. "I'm Jiwan, by the way. I run the repair shop at the human embassy. Fix just about anything. Shuttles, computers, coffee makers, you name it." He took another bite. "You come here often?" "Every day," Hana replied without thinking. Then she wished she had stayed quiet. Good spot for it, peaceful. Jiwan looked at the sky where the Velkhari were flying. Must be something being able to do that. Humans have always been jealous of species that can fly naturally. We had to build machines to get off the ground. Hana felt a flash of anger.
"Is that supposed to make me feel better?"
"What?" Jiwan looked confused. Then his eyes moved to her damaged wing. Understanding crossed his face. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "Everyone is sorry," Hana cut him off. "Sorry doesn't fix anything." She stood up, ready to leave. This conversation was unbearable. "Wait," Jiwan said. He wasn't looking at her with pity. His expression was thoughtful, almost curious. "What happened? If you don't mind me asking." Something in his tone made Hana pause. He wasn't asking because he felt sorry for her. He was asking like an engineer examining a problem. Against her better judgment, she sat back down. "Raider attack. 6 months ago. My wing was crushed in the explosion. The doctors say the nerve damage is too severe to heal. The connections between my brain and wing are destroyed." She gestured at her ruined wing with her tail. "In Velkhari medicine, that means permanent. No cure. No hope." Jiwan leaned forward, his eyes bright with interest. "Have you considered augmentation?" Hana blinked. "What?" "Augmentation. Prosthetics. Mechanical replacement." Jiwan set down his sandwich and pulled a small device from his pocket. He projected a hologram into the air. A human arm, half flesh and half machine. Humans do it all the time. When something breaks beyond repair, we build something new to replace it. That's... Hana searched for words. "That's not done here." The Velkhari would never. "Why not?" Jiwan asked simply. It was such a direct question that Hana found herself without an answer. Why not? Because it was beneath them? Because it was admitting weakness? Because the Velkhari prided themselves on their natural perfection? All of those reasons suddenly seemed hollow. "It wouldn't work anyway," Hana said finally. "Velkhari wings are too complex. They connect to our nervous system, our sense of balance, even our emotions. You can't just attach a machine and expect it to function. Jiwon smiled. It was not a mocking smile, but one of genuine excitement. You're right. You can't just attach a machine. You'd need something that interfaces with your existing neural pathways, something that reads your intentions and responds accordingly. It would need to be flexible but strong, lightweight but durable. The power system alone would be a challenge. He was talking faster now, thinking out loud. But it's not impossible. Just complicated. The best doctors on Velthara said it was impossible, Hana said. With respect to your doctors, they're biologists thinking like biologists. They tried to fix what was broken. Jiwon stood up and paced. I'm an engineer. I don't fix things. I build new things. There's a difference. Hana felt something she had not felt in months. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. You really think you could build something like that? She asked quietly. Jiwon stopped pacing and looked at her seriously. I think it's worth trying. I have friends, experts in cybernetics and neural engineering. If you gave us detailed scans of your wing structure, your neural pathways, everything, we could at least design something. See if it's feasible. And if it doesn't work, then you're no worse off than you are now, Jiwon said with a shrug. But if it does work, he looked up at the sky where the Valkyrie were still flying. You'd get your sky back. Hana followed his gaze. Above them, a young Valkyrie performed a complex spiral dive. She used to do that move. She used to feel the wind rush past her scales, the joy of perfect flight. She used to be whole. The other Valkyrie will hate this, she said slowly. They'll call it unnatural. An insult to our heritage? Probably, Jiwon agreed. The question is, do you care more about what they think or about flying again? It was another simple, direct question. Hana realized she had been sitting on this cliff every evening, watching others fly, slowly dying inside. She had accepted the judgment of her people. She had accepted that her life was over at such a young age. But this strange little human was offering her another option. It was terrifying. It was probably impossible. But it was a chance. How would we even start? Hana asked. Jiwon's smile grew wider. With measurements and medical scans. Then comes the design phase. After that, we build a prototype. Test it, refine it. Test again. It'll take months, maybe longer. It'll be frustrating and painful, and you'll probably want to quit a dozen times. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. But I promise you this, I won't give up if you don't. Hana looked at his small hand for a long moment. Then she extended her own claw and carefully touched it to his palm. All right, she said. Let's try the impossible. As the sun set fully and the stars began to appear, Hana felt something shift inside her. For the first time since the accident, she was not looking at the sky with despair. She was looking at it with purpose. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, Hana arrived at the human embassy before dawn. The building was small compared to Valkyrie structures. Humans preferred tight spaces and artificial lighting. She had to fold her wings and lower her head to fit through the entrance. A human guard looked surprised to see her but directed her to the basement where Jiwon's workshop was located. The workshop was chaos. Tools hung on every wall. Half-finished projects covered 3 workbenches. The smell of metal and machine oil filled the air. Jiwon stood in the center of it all, talking rapidly to 2 other humans. When he saw Hana, his face lit up. You came. I wasn't sure you would. He waved her inside. These are my colleagues. This is Hyunwoo. He specializes in cybernetics and prosthetic design. And this is Yoonji. She's our neural engineering expert. Hyunwoo was tall and thin with careful, precise movements. Yoonji was shorter with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. They both bowed in greeting, which Hana understood was a sign of respect in human culture. Jiwon told us about your situation, Yoonji said. Her Valkyrie language was even better than Jiwon's. We stayed up most of the night researching Valkyrie wing structure. It's fascinating. The complexity is beyond anything we've worked with before. Which makes it a perfect challenge, Hyunwoo added with a slight smile. We'd like to start with detailed scans, may we? For the next 3 hours, they measured and scanned every part of Hana's wings. They asked hundreds of questions. How did it feel when she used to fly? What signals did she send to make her wings move? Could she still feel anything in the damaged wing? The questions were clinical but not cold. These humans genuinely wanted to understand. When they finished, Yoonji pulled up holographic displays showing the scan results. The good news is that about 30% of your neural pathways are still intact. That's much better than we expected. The bad news is that the damaged sections are scattered throughout the wing. We can't just replace one area. So what do you propose? Hana asked. Jiwon stepped forward with a sketch. It showed a wing that was part organic, part mechanical. We build a prosthetic that integrates with what you have left. Think of it as a bridge. Your intact nerves send signals to our system. Our system interprets those signals and moves the mechanical parts. The artificial wing becomes an extension of your natural one. That sounds simple when you say it, Hana said doubtfully. It's not, Hyunwoo admitted. It's probably the most complex thing any of us have ever attempted. But the theory is sound. How long would it take? Hana asked. The three humans exchanged glances. 3 months for design and construction, Jiwon said. Maybe another month for testing and adjustments. Possibly longer if we hit unexpected problems. 4 months. It seemed like forever. But Hana had already spent 6 months doing nothing but grieving. What was 4 more months if there was even a chance? Let's do it, she said. That same afternoon, word of the project spread through the Valkyrie community. Hana's family was the first to react. Her mother came to the embassy in tears. Please don't do this, her mother begged. You'll become a monster. Half machine, half Valkyrie. Neither one nor the other. I'm already neither one nor the other, Hana replied gently. I'm a Valkyrie who cannot fly. At least this way I might have a chance to be whole again. Her mother left without another word. Only Hana's younger brother Doyen stayed behind. He was barely old enough to join the Sky Guard himself. He looked at Hana with admiration rather than pity. I think it's brave, Doyen said quietly. Everyone else just tells you to accept it. You're actually doing something. His words meant more to Hana than any amount of sympathy. The real opposition came 2 days later. Elder Taiyang, one of the most respected members of the Sky Guard, demanded an audience with the human ambassador. Hana was called to attend. She entered the formal meeting room to find Taiyang in his full ceremonial armor, his red scales gleaming with anger. This is an insult, Taiyang declared. The Valkyrie are the oldest and most advanced species in this sector. We have mastered biological engineering for millennia, and now this young one turns to humans. Humans. Barely more than children in the galaxy to fix what our best doctors could not. The human ambassador, a calm woman named Ambassador Park, remained seated. With respect, Elder, your doctors said the injury could not be healed. They did not say it could not be addressed through other means. Augmentation is for lesser species. Taiyang's voice boomed. Species born weak who must improve themselves with machines. The Valkyrie are born perfect. We need no such corruption. I am not perfect, Hana said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She forced herself to continue. I am broken. I cannot serve in the Sky Guard. I cannot perform even simple flight duties. I sit on cliffs and watch others live the life I used to have. If that is perfection, then I do not want it. You were injured in service, Taiyang said, his voice slightly softer. That is honorable. You must accept your fate with dignity. Why? The question escaped before Hana could stop it. Why must I accept being grounded for the rest of my life? Because it makes you more comfortable? Because it fits what you believe should be true? Taiyang's expression hardened. Because once you open this door, others will follow. Soon we will have Valkyrie with mechanical limbs, artificial organs, computer enhancements. We will lose what makes us Valkyrie. Or, Jiwon interjected, you'll become something more. Humans aren't ashamed of our augmentations. They don't make us less human. They make us more capable of achieving our goals. Humans, Taiyang said with disdain, are barely evolved apes who compensate for natural inadequacy with tools. That is not the Valkyrie way. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Ambassador Park spoke carefully. Elder Taiyang, the human embassy supports this project. However, we understand Valkyrie culture is not our own. We will not proceed if it causes genuine harm to your society. Hana, the choice is ultimately yours. All eyes turned to Hana. This was the moment. She could back down, accept her place, live quietly and avoid conflict, or she could fight for the chance to fly again, even if it meant becoming something the Valkyrie had never seen before. She thought about Jiwon's words on the cliff. She thought about her brother's admiration. She thought about the sky. I choose to try, Hana said firmly. If the council wants to stop me, they will have to order me directly. Until then, I am a citizen with the right to make my own choices about my body. Taeyang's tail lashed in anger, but he could not argue with that. Valkyrie law was clear on personal autonomy. He stood and turned to leave. At the door he paused. "When this fails, and it will fail, do not expect sympathy," he said coldly. Then he was gone. The room exhaled collectively. Ambassador Park smiled slightly. "Well, that could have gone worse, could it have?" Hana asked. "He didn't forbid it," Yunji pointed out. "That means we can work." Over the next week, protests formed outside the human embassy. Some Valkyrie carried signs calling Hana a traitor. Others debated loudly about tradition versus progress. The news feeds were full of arguments. Some younger Valkyrie supported her. Most older ones did not. Hana tried not to watch the coverage. Inside the workshop, the design took shape. Hyunwoo created a framework using memory alloys that could shift and adjust like natural wing bones. Yoonji developed a neural interface that could read Hana's intentions with remarkable accuracy. Jiwon worked on the membrane, a flexible material that could catch wind like natural dragon skin but wouldn't tear. One evening, as they worked late, Hana asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me. This project could damage relations between humans and Valkyrie. Why risk it?" Jiwon looked up from his work. "You know what humans were before we reached the stars? We were stuck on one planet, fighting each other, dying from diseases we couldn't cure, limited by bodies that couldn't survive in space. Everything we've achieved came from refusing to accept those limits." He smiled. "When I see someone told they can never fly again, I don't see an acceptable loss. I see a challenge. And humans really, really like challenges, even if you fail. Especially if we might fail," Hyunwoo added. "Success is sweeter when it wasn't guaranteed." Hana felt warmth spread through her chest. These strange little humans with their tools and their stubborn optimism were giving her something her own people could not. Hope without pity. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank us when you're flying." Jiwon replied with a grin. "Now let's get back to work. This wing won't build itself." Outside, the protesters continued to argue, but inside the workshop, 3 humans and 1 dragon bent over their designs, building the impossible piece by piece. The first prototype failed spectacularly. The neural interface worked perfectly, too perfectly. When Hana tried to move the mechanical wing, it responded so quickly that it nearly threw her across the workshop. The force was 10 times stronger than her natural wing. She crashed into a wall of tools, sending wrenches and drill bits clattering to the floor. Jiwon rushed over. "Are you hurt?" Hana stood up shakily, rubbing her shoulder. "Only my pride. And maybe your wall." They recalibrated for 2 days straight. The second attempt was better, but still wrong. The wing moved with her thoughts, but it felt numb. Dead. Flying required more than mechanical movement. It required feeling the air, sensing pressure changes, knowing instinctively when to adjust. The prosthetic had no sense of touch. "We need sensors," Yoonji said, staring at the readings. "Pressure sensors, wind speed detectors, temperature gauges. The wing needs to feel." "That's going to add weight," Hyunwoo worried. "Too much weight and it won't generate enough lift." They argued for hours about the balance between function and weight. Hana listened, fascinated by how humans worked. They disagreed constantly, but never with anger. Each disagreement was treated as a puzzle to solve together, not a battle to win. Week 3 brought a new problem. The prosthetic's power system overheated during extended use. After just 10 minutes of movement, the metal became too hot to touch. Hana's natural scales protected her somewhat, but she could feel the uncomfortable warmth spreading. "We need better cooling," Jiwon muttered, sketching frantically. "Maybe liquid cooling like we use in engines?" "Too complex," Hyunwoo countered. "More parts mean more potential failures. We need passive cooling." They redesigned the frame to include channels that directed airflow across the heating components. It helped but wasn't enough. Finally, Yoonji suggested using Hana's own body. Valkyrie naturally regulated temperature through their scales. Could they channel some of the heat into Hana's circulatory system? It required more integration between dragon and machine. More surgery, more risk. Hana agreed without hesitation. She had already come this far. The protests outside the embassy had grown. One morning, Hana arrived to find that someone had painted angry words across the embassy wall during the night. Abomination. Traitor. False dragon. Do-yun came with her that day. He stared at the words with clenched fists. "I could find out who did this." "It doesn't matter," Hana said, though the words stung. They're afraid. Fear makes people cruel. You're not afraid, Doyen observed. I'm terrified, Hana admitted, but I'm more afraid of never trying. Inside the workshop, progress continued. The cooling system worked. The sensors were added, each one carefully calibrated to match how Hana's natural wing perceived the world. Slowly, the prosthetic began to feel less like a tool attached to her body and more like a part of her body. But the biggest challenge remained: the membrane. Hyunwoo had created a flexible material that could handle the stress of flight, but it didn't move right. Natural dragon wing membrane was alive. It flexed and adjusted constantly, responding to tiny changes in air pressure. The artificial membrane just hung there like fabric. We need microactuators, Yoonji said. Tiny artificial muscles throughout the membrane that can adjust tension. Do you know how many that would require? Hyunwoo asked. Thousands. Tens of thousands. The control system would be impossibly complex. Then we don't control it directly, Jiwon suggested. We create a subprogram, artificial instincts. The membrane monitors air pressure and adjusts automatically, without Hana having to think about it. Like how your heart beats without you commanding it. It was brilliant and insane. They spent 2 weeks programming the system, teaching it how dragon wings should behave. They used recordings of other Valkyrie flying, data from wind tunnel tests, everything they could find. The artificial instinct slowly learned. Month 2 passed into month 3. Hana spent hours each day in the workshop, wearing the prosthetic while they made endless adjustments. The connection between her nervous system and the mechanical wing grew stronger. At first, moving it required conscious thought. Gradually, it became more natural. Not yet instinctive, but approaching it. She also learned about the humans. Hyunwoo had lost his legs in an accident as a child. The mechanical prosthetics he wore were so advanced that most people never noticed. I've had them for 20 years, he told Hana. At first, I hated them. Now I barely remember my original legs. These are my legs. Yoonji had a different story. Her sister had been paralyzed in a shuttle crash. We spent 3 years developing a neural bridge that let her walk again. That's why I do this work, because I remember how it felt when she took her first steps. Jiwon's motivation was simpler. Humans are born weak, he said while adjusting a servo motor. No claws, no scales, no wings, no natural weapons. We survived by making tools, by improving ourselves. It's in our blood. When someone says something is impossible, we hear a challenge. The Valkyrie see it differently, Hana said. We believe we're born complete, perfect as nature made us. To alter that is to reject what we are. Maybe, Jiwon replied. Or maybe perfection isn't about staying the same. Maybe it's about becoming who you need to be. Those words stayed with Hana during the difficult days that followed, because difficult days came in abundance. The integration surgery took longer than expected. She developed an infection that required a week of recovery. The prosthetics frame cracked during stress testing and had to be rebuilt. Each setback felt like confirmation of what Elder Taeyang had said, that this would fail. But the humans never wavered. When something broke, they fixed it. When a design didn't work, they started over. Failure was simply information, not defeat. By the end of month 3, they had something that looked right. The prosthetic wing matched her natural wing in size and shape. The iridescent metal panels echoed her silver blue scales. The membrane could fold and extend smoothly. All the systems worked in harmony. On paper, in simulations, in every test they could run without actual flight, it was ready. We should do a tethered test, Hyunwoo suggested. Attach safety cables and have you try to fly in a controlled environment. They set up in the embassy's cargo bay, the only space large enough. Hana stood in the center with cables attached to her harness. The mechanical wing spread beside her natural one. She could feel the neural connection humming, ready to respond to her thoughts. Whenever you're ready, Jiwon said from the control station. Hana took a breath. Then she engaged the wing. Both wings beat down simultaneously. She felt the lift, felt her feet leave the ground. The cables held her, but for a moment she was airborne. The sensation was indescribable. Joy and terror and hope all mixed together. The power readings are good, Yoonji called out. Neural sync is holding steady. Hana tried a few more movements. Banking left. Banking right. Adjusting the angle of attack. The prosthetic responded well, though not perfectly. There was still a slight delay, a tiny disconnect between intention and action, but it was flying. She was flying. They ran tests for 3 hours until Hana was exhausted. When they finally lowered her back to the ground and removed the safety cables, she was shaking with fatigue and exhilaration. How did it feel? Jiwan asked eagerly. Strange, foreign, uncomfortable. Hana paused, then smiled. Wonderful. They spent another 2 weeks refining based on the tethered test results. The delay improved. The power consumption decreased. The control became more intuitive. Every adjustment brought the prosthetic closer to feeling like a real wing. Finally, they could delay no longer. The question had to be answered. Would it work in actual flight? Could Hana truly fly again? Or would the prosthetic fail when it mattered most? Counselor Minji came to the workshop one evening. Unlike Elder Taiyang, her opposition was not about tradition but about practicality. She studied the prosthetic carefully. Impressive craftsmanship, she admitted. But the real test comes in the air. When will you attempt actual flight? Soon, Jiwan answered. We're finalizing the last adjustments. I would like to be present, Minji said. If this succeeds, it will change everything for our people. If it fails, she looked at Hana with something that might have been sympathy. I want to know either way. After she left, Hana turned to the humans. So when do we try? The three of them exchanged glances. They had all been avoiding this question. Finally, Jiwan spoke. The prosthetic is as ready as we can make it. The real question is, are you ready? Hana looked at the mechanical wing. She had worn it for so many hours that it no longer felt completely foreign. The neural connection had become almost natural. But almost wasn't the same as certain. If she failed, if the wing malfunctioned mid-flight, she could die. Even with safety measures, flight was dangerous. But she had not come this far to stop at the edge. Tomorrow morning, Hana said firmly. Dawn, we fly. That night, Hana barely slept. She lay in her quarters, the prosthetic beside her, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The accident, the months of despair, meeting Jiwan, the long hours of work and hope and frustration. Tomorrow she would discover if any of it meant anything. When dawn came, Hana was ready. Ready to soar or ready to fall. Either way, she would face the sky again. The canyon was 2 hours' flight from the capital city, far enough that they could test in private. Hana rode in a human transport shuttle, the prosthetic wing carefully attached. Jiwan, Hyunwoo, and Yunji came with all their monitoring equipment. Doyen insisted on coming too. To everyone's surprise, Counselor Minji arrived separately, accompanied by 2 of her aides. I told you I wanted to see this, Minji said simply. The canyon was beautiful in the early morning light. Red rock walls rose hundreds of feet on either side. A thermal current rose from the canyon floor where the sun was already heating the rocks. It was perfect for a first flight. High walls to catch updrafts, open space to maneuver, and soft sand at the bottom if things went very wrong. Hana stood at the edge of the cliff and looked down. It was a long way to fall. We can do more tethered tests, Hyunwoo offered. No rush. There's every rush, Hana replied. I've waited 6 months already. Yunji attached the final monitoring sensors. These will track your neural signals, wing position, and power levels. We'll see everything in real time. If something goes wrong, we'll know immediately. And what can you do if something goes wrong while I'm falling? Hana asked with dark humor. Tell you we told you so? Jiwan suggested. Then his expression became serious. Hana, you don't have to prove anything, not to us. Not to them. He gestured at where Minji stood watching. Only to yourself. Hana flexed both wings. The natural one responded instantly, as it always had. The prosthetic took a fraction of a second longer. That tiny delay they had never quite eliminated. She had practiced accounting for it. In theory, she could compensate. In theory, the flight plan was conservative. Glide down from the cliff. Catch the thermal rising from the canyon floor. Make 1 circuit of the canyon. Land on the far side, simple, safe, nothing fancy. Neural connection is strong, Yunji called from her monitors. Power systems are optimal. Wing response is within expected parameters. Hana approached the edge. She remembered the last time she had flown. The raid, the explosion. The terrible moment when she realized her wing wasn't responding. She remembered falling. Fear tried to paralyze her. The old Hana would have been fearless. But the old Hana was gone. This Hana knew what it meant to fall. This Hana knew pain and limitation and loss. This Hana also knew something the old one never had. That sometimes the bravest thing you could do was try when you were afraid. She spread her wings. 1 natural, 1 mechanical. The prosthetic gleamed in the morning sun. She could feel both wings now. The sensation strange but not wrong. Her natural wing felt warm and alive. The prosthetic felt cooler, more precise, like an extension of her will made physical. "Whenever you're ready," Jiwan said quietly. Hana jumped. For one terrible, infinite second, she fell. The prosthetic wing extended but didn't catch the air right. It was too stiff, fighting against her instincts instead of complementing them. She was going to crash. She was going to die. The ground rushed up toward her. Then something clicked in her mind. She stopped trying to fly the way she used to fly. She stopped trying to make the prosthetic act like her natural wing. Instead, she flew the way she was now, adjusted for the mechanical wing's different rhythm, compensated for its unique characteristics, found the balance between organic and artificial. She caught the air. Both wings bit into the wind and held. She was gliding. The thermal rose ahead of her. Hana angled toward it, feeling the prosthetic respond to her intentions. The sensors in the artificial membrane detected the change in air temperature and adjusted automatically. She entered the thermal and began to rise. She was flying. The joy that flooded through her was almost overwhelming. After 6 months of being grounded, after months of pain and despair and uncertain hope, she was in the sky again. Tears formed in her eyes, but the wind tore them away. "Hana, your readings are all good." Yunji's voice came through the communication device in her ear. "How does it feel?" "Like coming home," Hana replied, her voice choked with emotion. The flight plan called for one conservative circuit. But now that she was airborne, now that she knew the prosthetic worked, Hana wanted to push further. She needed to know what her new wing could really do. She banked left, testing the turn rate. Good. She tried to climb, feeling the prosthetic strain slightly under the load, but hold steady. She experimented with different wing positions, different angles, learning how the mechanical and natural wings worked together. They didn't work the same. The prosthetic couldn't match the subtle flexibility of her natural wing, but it had its own strengths. It could hold angles that would strain organic membrane. It could generate thrust in ways her natural wing couldn't. It was different, not lesser. "Hana, you're exceeding the flight plan," Hyunwoo said, with what might have been concern or excitement. "Should we abort?" "Absolutely not," Hana replied. She felt more alive than she had in half a year. She gained altitude, spiraling up on the thermal current. The canyon walls fell away below her. She could see the entire landscape now, the transport shuttle looking tiny on the cliff edge, the monitoring station the humans had set up, the distant capital city on the horizon. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She folded her wings and dove. The dive was exhilarating and terrifying. Wind screamed past her scales. The prosthetic wing held its folded position perfectly, the actuators keeping the membrane tight against the frame. Speed built rapidly. The ground rushed up. At the last moment, she spread both wings and pulled up. The G-forces were immense. Her vision darkened at the edges. The prosthetic wing screamed in protest, literally the stress making the metal sing. But it held. She leveled out just above the canyon floor, traveling at tremendous speed. "What are you doing?" Jiwan's voice was genuinely panicked now. "Testing limits," Hana called back. She was laughing. When had she last laughed like this? She climbed again, more aggressively this time. She tried a barrel roll, sloppy and uncoordinated, but she completed it. She tried a loop. The prosthetic struggled with the inverted position, but adapted. Each maneuver taught her something new about how her altered body worked. Down on the cliff, Doyen was cheering loud enough that she could hear him even over the wind. Even Counselor Minji looked impressed, though she tried to hide it. Finally, after nearly 30 minutes of flight, far longer than planned, Hana began her approach to land. This was actually the hardest part. Landing required precise control. Too fast and she would crash. Too slow and she would stall. The prosthetic wing had to coordinate perfectly with her natural one. She glided in, adjusting constantly. The ground approached. She flared both wings, bleeding off speed. Her natural wing responded instantly. The prosthetic lagged by just a fraction of a second. She compensated. Her back legs touched ground, then her front legs. She folded her wings and stood on solid earth, breathing hard. She had flown. She had actually flown. Doyen reached her first, throwing his arms around her neck as much as he could reach. "That was amazing. You were amazing." The humans arrived next. Jiwon was grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. You terrified us. That dive was not in the plan. Plans change, Hana said, still catching her breath. Yoonji was already reviewing the data on her portable screen. The neural sync held stable throughout. Even during the dive, even during the extreme maneuvers. Some power fluctuations, some heating issues, but nothing critical. Hana, this worked. It actually worked. Hyunwoo was examining the prosthetic wing itself, checking for damage. Minor stress fractures in 2 support struts. Some membrane actuators are running hot. We'll need to reinforce these sections. But overall, it performed beyond expectations. Counselor Minji approached slowly. Her expression was difficult to read. That was impressive. I admit I did not think it would work. I thought this was a human experiment that would end in tragedy. It almost did, Hana admitted. When I first jumped, I thought I was going to die. But I learned to fly differently. Not the way I used to fly. A new way. Minji studied the prosthetic wing carefully. This will cause upheaval in our society. Other injured Velkari will want this. The traditional factions will fight against it. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared to fly, Hana said simply. What others do with that knowledge is up to them. Minji nodded slowly. Then I will support you when this goes before the council. Tradition is important, but so is the well-being of our people. If this technology can restore what was lost. She trailed off, then turned to the humans. You have done something remarkable. The Velkari owe you a debt. We don't do this for debts, Jiwon replied. We do it because we can. Because someone needed help and we had the skills to help them. As they packed up the equipment, Hana walked back to the cliff edge where she had jumped. She looked up at the sky that had been denied to her for so long. It was hers again, not in the same way as before, but perhaps in a better way. Because now she knew what it meant to lose flight, she would never take it for granted. Doyeon joined her. So what happens now? Now, Hana said, I need to prove I can do more than one test flight. I need to prove I can serve in the Skyguard again. I need to show everyone that this isn't a novelty or a failure, it's a solution. Elder Taeyang won't make it easy, Doyeon warned. Good, Hana said, spreading her wings again. One natural, one mechanical, both hers. News of Hana's successful flight spread across Veltara like wildfire. Within hours, the planetary networks were filled with footage from the test flight. Hana diving, climbing, soaring with her hybrid wings. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some Velkari saw it as a miracle. Young dragons cheered in the streets. Parents of injured children contacted the human embassy asking for help. Several injured Skyguard veterans quietly requested information about the prosthetic technology. Others were horrified. Conservative groups organized protests. Religious leaders called it an offense against nature. The debate dominated every news channel, every social gathering, every family dinner across the planet. At the center of the storm was Elder Taeyang. He watched the footage of Hana's flight with a face carved from stone. Then he made a decision that would force everything into the open. 3 days after the test flight, a formal challenge arrived at Hana's home. The document was written in traditional High Velkari script. It invoked ancient laws that no one had used in decades. The message was simple and devastating. Elder Taeyang challenged Hana to prove her worth through the trial of the 7 winds. What is that? Jiwon asked when Hana showed him the document. They were in the workshop where Hyunwoo and Yoonji were already making improvements to the prosthetic based on the test flight data. It's an ancient test, Hana explained, her voice tight, an aerial obstacle course through the Shrieking Peaks, the most dangerous mountain range on Veltara. It tests speed, precision, endurance, and courage. Many trained pilots have died attempting it. And if you refuse, Yoonji asked quietly, then I prove him right, that I'm not really a Skyguard member, that the prosthetic is a toy, not a tool. That injured Velkari should accept their limitations instead of trying to overcome them. Hana's tail lashed in frustration. It's a trap. If I refuse, I lose. If I attempt it and fail, I lose. The only way to win is to succeed at something that might kill me. So don't do it, Doyeon said. He had become a regular presence in the workshop. You've already proven you can fly. You don't need to prove anything else. Yes, I do, Hana replied. Because this isn't just about me anymore. Other injured Velkari are watching. If I back down, they lose hope. If I fail publicly, they lose hope. This challenge isn't really about whether I'm good enough. It's about whether change is acceptable. Jiwon studied the challenge document carefully. When is this trial scheduled? 2 weeks, Hana said. Then we have 2 weeks to prepare, Jiwon said simply. What do you need? For the next 13 days, they worked harder than ever before. Hyunwoo reinforced the prosthetics frame with stronger alloys. Yoonji improved the neural response time by another fraction of a second. Jiwon added redundant systems so that if one component failed, others could compensate. But the real work was Hana's. She flew every day, pushing herself harder each time. She practiced in storms to prepare for unpredictable winds. She flew through narrow canyons to improve her precision. She practiced emergency maneuvers. What to do if the prosthetic lost power, if the neural link disconnected, if the membrane tore. The physical preparation was exhausting. But it was the mental preparation that proved harder. Hana had to confront her fear. The last time she had flown in truly dangerous conditions, she had been crippled. Her mind kept showing her images of failure. The prosthetic breaking apart, herself falling, the ground rushing up. One evening when she was practicing alone, she froze mid-flight. Panic overwhelmed her. She barely managed to land before her wings gave out. She collapsed on the ground, shaking. Jiwon found her there an hour later. He sat down beside her without speaking. Finally, Hana broke the silence. What if I can't do it? What if I freeze again during the trial? Then you freeze, Jiwon said calmly. And maybe you fail. And maybe that's okay. Hana looked at him in surprise. You think I should give up? I think you should do what's right for you, not what everyone else expects. This trial, it's not fair. Taeyang set it up hoping you would fail. But you know what? Even if you do fail, you've already succeeded at something more important. What's that? You flew again. 6 months ago, you sat on that cliff watching others fly, believing you never would. Now you've flown. You've proven the technology works. You've given hope to every injured Valkyrie on this planet. That's already a victory. The trial is just politics. But if I don't try, then some people will judge you, Jiwon interrupted. Some already judge you. Some always will, no matter what you do. You can't live your life trying to please everyone. You can only live it trying to be true to yourself. Hana absorbed those words. I want to try, she said finally. Not because Taeyang challenged me, but because I want to know if I can do it. For me? Jiwon smiled. Then let's make sure you're ready. The day of the trial arrived cold and windy. Terrible flying weather, which was probably intentional. Hundreds of Valkyrie gathered at the base of the shrieking peaks to watch. The trial would be broadcast live across the planet. Human diplomats attended, including Ambassador Park. Counselor Minji was there, as was Elder Taeyang, looking grim and determined. The course was brutal. 7 sections, each designed to test a different aspect of flight. The first 3 sections tested speed and agility through narrow mountain passes. The 4th tested strength in a vertical climb against hurricane-force winds. The 5th tested precision through a field of razor-sharp ice formations. The 6th tested courage through a knife-edge ridge barely wider than a dragon's wingspan. The 7th tested everything in a supersonic dive through a narrow canyon. Pilots could quit at any time. Many did. But quitting meant accepting that you were not good enough for the Skyguard. Hana stood at the starting point. The prosthetic wing checked and rechecked. Yoonji had monitoring equipment set up to track every system. But once Hana entered the course, there would be no help available. She would be alone. Taeyang approached her. It is not too late to withdraw. No one would blame you for recognizing your limitations. I recognize my limitations, Hana replied calmly. I just don't accept them. Taeyang's expression hardened. Pride comes before falling. So does the jump, Hana said. Then she walked to the starting line. The signal fired. Hana launched herself into the sky. The first section was a series of tight turns through a winding pass. The rocks were close enough that one mistake would be fatal. Hana's natural wing handled the fine control while the prosthetic provided power. She cleared it faster than she expected. The second section added vertical elements. She had to spiral up around natural stone pillars while avoiding outcroppings. The prosthetic's precise angle control proved invaluable. She climbed smoothly, adapting to each change in wind. The third section combined speed with obstacles. Natural wind-carved arches she had to fly through at high velocity. Her vision narrowed. Her heart pounded, but her wings held steady. She shot through the final arch and into the 4th section. The 4th section was where many pilots failed. A vertical climb against winds that could reach 200 miles per hour. The winds tried to slam her against the rock face. Hana fought for every foot of altitude. Her muscles screamed. The prosthetic began to overheat. Warning signals flashed in her neural interface. But she remembered Jiwan's modifications. She activated the emergency cooling system they had added. The prosthetic's temperature dropped. She kept climbing. At the top, she was gasping for air, but she was through. The fifth section was beautiful and deadly. Ice formations created by centuries of wind and water formed a glittering maze. Some of the formations were thin as paper and sharp as blades. Touch one and it would slice scales and membrane alike. Hana flew slowly here, using every sensor the prosthetic had to navigate the deadly beauty. Halfway through, she clipped a formation with her natural wing. Pain lanced through her. Blood streaked her scales. But the prosthetic kept functioning, keeping her airborne and stable. She completed the section, wounded but alive. The sixth section was the ridge where Hana had been injured 6 months ago. The raiders had attacked her here. She knew this place. She feared this place. The ridge was exactly what Tai Yang had described, a knife edge of rock with hurricane winds trying to push any flyer into the walls. Hana approached it slowly. Her fear tried to take control. The memories of the explosion, the pain, the fall, they all came back. Then she heard Jiwan's voice in her memory. "You're not the dragon you were. Be the dragon you are now." The old Hana would have tried to power through with strength. The new Hana flew with precision. She used the prosthetic's ability to make micro-adjustments, to compensate for the unpredictable winds. She used the sensors to anticipate gusts before they hit. She flew with both her natural instincts and her acquired skills. She made it through. On the other side, she allowed herself one moment of triumph. She had conquered the place where she had fallen. The seventh section was the final test, a 2-mile dive through a canyon that narrowed as it descended. Pilots had to reach supersonic speed and then pull up at the last moment before hitting the canyon floor. It was pure speed and courage. Hana positioned herself at the top. Below, she could see the tiny figures of the observers. She could see the human team, probably holding their breath. She could see Elder Taeyang waiting for her to fail. She folded her wings and dropped. The world became a blur of speed and sound.